Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending our third Ipsos Iris webinar. My name is Tasneem Ali, and I lead the publisher vertical as part of Ipsos Iris's commercial team. Just to remind you, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared with those who couldn't attend today. I am joined by two esteemed guests, Ian Dowds, CEO of UKOM, who will give some quick background and an update on Ipsos Iris. Also joining is Rishad Tobaccowala, Senior Advisor to Publicis Groupe and author of Restoring the Soul of Business, Staying Human in the Age of Data, who will give us an expert view on importance of data and being future focused. With that, I will now hand over to Ian.
Morning, everybody. But thanks for joining us at the first UKOM Ipsos Iris webinar post-launch of the first sets of data. It's fair to say that while the importance of independent and trustworthy industry measurement is a relatively frequent topic of conversation and recently more so than ever, rarely do people go as deep into the nuts and bolts of it as at the time of a change of supplier. New supplier, new panel, a single source one, new methodology, new data, new numbers. There's a hell of a lot for everyone to take in and manage. I'd like to first of all thank all those who have been up to their elbows in Greece over the last 2 years, of course the UKOM and Ipsos teams, but also those who've had input into the process on top of their day jobs, all those hard-working souls from publishers and agencies and advertisers and government departments and various trade and marketing bodies who sit on the UKOM commercial and technical boards, and also on top of those who've contributed to the various work streams that have helped and continue to help shape the UKOM endorsed data from Ipsos Iris. So 2 months worth of data is now out there for subscribers. New data that will provide new insights, and I'll let Tasneem in a little while go into some of the detail later in the session, but it includes daily overnight equivalent top line audience data, data delivered monthly, but that can then be customized by any date selection or days or weeks or weekdays or weekends. Of course, data by demographic, but also now by TV region, by ethnicity, and by day part, with lifestyle and media consumption categorizations on top too. Lots more enhancements to come, including interest-based audiences and more flexible reporting. Plus also to come measurement of YouTube and embedded video and the development of background audio measurement capability, as well as further exploration of measuring children's behaviour online. The fact is that UKOM and Ipsos Iris just cannot afford to stand still, and we won't. Now, the driving reason for the selection of Ipsos Iris was the single source panel of 10,000 individuals covering around 25,000 devices, PCs, tablets and smartphones. That single source panel means that the Iris data is more interoperable than UKOM data has ever been before. Now, we at UKOM have always tried to position ourselves as the industry's flexible friend, and the ongoing collaboration between UKOM and PAMCO to integrate online audience data with print readership is proof that that's no empty claim. So the first data sets are out there. We can and we should and we must congratulate Ipsos on delivering those. But let me be honest, we are under no illusions. The hard work for UKOM and Ipsos really has only just begun. And again, being very honest, there will be more required from the very well stretched already publishing teams around tagging and detailed categorization. But the granularity and the value of the data that results from that will make it worthwhile. Between us all, we must ensure that Ipsos Iris delivers exactly what the industry wants and needs, and that the Ipsos Iris data is embedded into daily usage by subscribers, both in its own right and through other forms of integration. We're very proud of what we've achieved and a bit knackered, but with everyone's input, we're more excited by the opportunities that lie ahead. Now, before Tasneem gets to show you some of the detail of Iris, let me introduce you all to Rishad Tobaccowala, who, having spent, I think, about or over 40 years working in advertising and media, at first with Leo Burnett, and more recently at the highest levels with Publicis Groupe, for whom he still advises, is now author, advisor, educator, and speaker, and making me feel even more unworthy, in addition to having founded and chairing his own foundation, helping charities with health, education, and welfare in Mumbai, in India. If you haven't visited his website before, you'll see it when he comes up to speak. I recommend you give it a try. He has a great perspective and really rich insight into a variety of topics, including trust and quality, and changing behaviours in media consumption, and the importance of integrity and collaboration in future-proofing businesses, some of which he may well touch on in the next 10 minutes. Thanks again, everybody. Rishad, thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you, everybody, for joining. Over 4 decades of working in marketing, trying to understand technology and trying even harder to understand people, I've come across sort of some themes that I think might be important as all of you all continue to navigate your successful careers, as well as the changes that we all face around us. So the first one really is built around data. And data, the way I look at it, is like electricity, which is one cannot operate without it. Things stop without it. And data, like electricity, helps us illuminate the way ahead. However, it is important to note that while data is critical and it is necessary, it is not sufficient, because as we move into the future, very few companies, very few individuals differentiate themselves just because they have electricity. You don't hear companies going around and saying, we're better than anyone else because we have electric power. It's how they use that power, and it's how you use the data that really is the key. T.S. Eliot, a British or English poet, once wrote, between the idea and the reality falls the shadow. I have written a piece called Between the Data and the Reality Falls the Shadow. And how do we make sure that even with the very best data, we bring other things to it, including ways to interrogate it in order that we actually see reality. A second factor, which is extremely critical when it comes down to data, insights, and analytics, is the simple word called trust. Most of us work in marketing, brand building, or media companies, which again are brands. And many times a brand is a trust mark. And trust is really the essential currency, which today is probably the most scarce across both the world and in our own industry. So regaining, keeping, and earning trust becomes critical. And in order to do so, what I have figured out over the years, or think I have figured out, are that there are 3 key ingredients to earning and keeping trust. And while trust itself is a loaded term, the 3 ingredients are things that we can actually work on. The first one really is integrity. And integrity means, is what you do, is the data good? Is it valid? So integrity. The second is intent, which is, what is the intention of the data collectors? What are their incentives? Because often if your incentives are skewed and your intent is skewed, the data is skewed too. And the third is transparency, which is the ability to show how you got, what you are doing, and the methodology underneath it. So in many ways, to to earn trust, whether it is data or as an individual. It is to ensure that there is integrity, there is right intent, and there is transparency. And I always evaluate things utilizing those, and I suggest that these may be factors that you all might want to integrate into your thinking. Third factor is change. Over the last 4 decades, I've come to basically believe 2 things about change. One is I find change somewhat difficult, and I've written a lot about it, and I basically say change sucks. Now, when someone basically tells me to change, I often tell them that I'm intensely happy and I don't need to, but if they think change is so good, they should. It's kind of remarkable that change is one of the few things people come to us, tell us is good, but they want us to do. When they bring us a bottle of wine and say it's good, they say, let's share it. But when it comes down to change, they want us to do it. Change is difficult. It's difficult for everybody. It's difficult for many of us who've spent many years in various industries, including this one, have earned a certain amount of proficiency, fame, and maybe even reputation. And change basically scuttles a lot of it. It makes us have to rethink. It makes us have to relearn. It makes us sometimes look silly. In my case, more than sometimes look silly. And so change is difficult. And if we don't understand that change is difficult, and then unless we basically start putting in things like the right incentives, the right training systems, and why it's good, people won't do it. But even though change is difficult, irrelevance is even worse. And therefore, we have to change. And right now, when it comes down to change, there are more changes going on in the world of media and marketing than ever before. On this particular slide, you see an address. It's www.rishad.substack.com. If you go there, you don't have to enter your email, but if you enter your email, you will basically every week get what Ian has mentioned, a 6-minute read on various topics. It changes every week, which now is read by approximately 30,000 people, including about 200 CEOs, about where the people and marketing and others are going in the future. But in that particular area, I have spoken about ruptures in the media scape and the marketing scape, which is actually being changed right as we basically speak. And there are 2 driving forces behind it. One is we're entering a new connected age. And connection is important. The first connected age began in 1993 with the World Wide Web, when we were basically connected as human beings to transactions and connected to discovery. In our business, we call that search and e-commerce. It's also known affectionately as Google and Amazon. In 2007, building on the first, we entered the second connected age. And again, human beings were connected to what? They were basically connected to everybody because of social media, and connected to all the time because of mobile, which we call social and mobile, also affectionately known as Facebook and Apple. And then we are now about to enter a new age, building again on what has come before, where data will connect to data, which is machine learning and AI. There'll be much faster forms of connection because of 5G. All of us will connect in new ways, including voice, AR, and VR. And we will be connected to the great computer in the sky, which is quantum-based computing. And this will further change media and marketing landscape. What you're going to basically see is mongrelization of media. It's going to be harder and harder to differentiate between what is mobile and social and e-commerce and online and offline. We're going to basically see the rise of the ears as much as the rise of the eyes. What I mean by the ears is voice, whether it is being, Alexa, whether it is podcasting. We're now seeing the colonization of the ears. That's rising. And the third is going to be increasingly difficult to tell what is a media company and who is a content creator. I'm a little media company using Substack for free and reaching 30,000 people from my home. It's a small little media company, but I've become a media company. And so to a great extent, we're going to deal with that too. And so in that particular world, this intention of understanding and noticing trust, understanding data, and dealing with change becomes extremely important. Now, in order to do that is my fourth point. And the fourth point is, if we're living in a connected world, we have to connect as an industry. And in order to connect, collaboration is key. And we need an ecosystem where everyone is a winner. And no particular person has so much control over data that other people don't have a currency, because without a proper currency, without a form of collaboration, it's very, very hard to connect. So in sum, we are about to enter a third connected age with amazing change, where people are going to be truly omnipotent, not just omni-channel, where data is going to be like electricity, but we're going to need more than data in order to actually understand. Because in the end, we choose with our hearts and we use numbers to justify what we just did. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all. Again, if you'd like, you could subscribe. It's completely free to my newsletter to read things like ruptures in the mediascape and between the data and the reality falls to shadow. And I hand it over back to Tasneem. Thank you.
Data is like electricity that illuminates the way. Thank you so much, Rishad, for your inspiring talk. Certainly lots to think about. All right, so let's talk Ipsos Iris. After much anticipation, Ipsos delivered the first UKOM endorsed data in May, which had April 2021 data. I'm pleased to take this opportunity to update you on how the solution is developed and showcase the robustness of our data by presenting a case study. But before I do that, let me give you a quick background on Ipsos Iris's development. All right, so Ipsos Iris was developed with, as Ian rightly said, valuable input from the entire industry, including publishers, agencies, industry bodies, and consultancies. There were 8 work streams with representation from 49 different organizations. So far, we have 403 sites tagged across 19 publishers, with over 6,000 sites being reported and 24 subscribing clients to date. In addition to this, after 17 months of development and over 60,000 man-hours later, we delivered the first Ipsos Iris dataset on May 25th. We have 315 active users so far, and in a short span of a month and a half, they have run 2,400 reports. These reports are run on our custom-built interface, which, as you can see, is rather intuitive and user-friendly. We have received very positive feedback from our users on easy-to-use templated reports, which have numerous metrics and variables to help you in answering key business objectives, such as, let's explore a few. Measure and track digital footprint by reach, time spent, and page views. Report on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis to track trends and insights for the UK market. Track competitor activity to identify any strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. You can also analyze category performances in order to react quickly to any market changes. You can also, of course, analyze consumer trends to understand detailed audience behavior and monitor specific product launches and see how they grow over time, which as a business will help you make more revenue by keeping track and achieving KPIs, which is, as we know, is extremely important. Spend less by helping you to make smart decisions and invest in growth opportunities while avoiding costly mistakes. Our data also allows you to do things quickly, move faster, and make informed decisions to capitalize on the right opportunities, and also be one step ahead by utilizing data to strategize for growth in this ever-changing UK market. So how do you do all this? Well, we have a huge list of detailed demographics and media variables, and you can use these to do really granular analysis across all these variables, which really, for the first time, enables you to have rich data about your online audiences. In addition to this, we also have 34 lifestyle statements with the likes of, for example, I have a keen sense of adventure, or money is the best measure of success. Now, using these statements, you can actually create your own segments, and now you can really slice and dice the data to meet your needs. Not only this, our data can be further segmented by ITV and government regions, allowing you to really make informed decisions about your business at a very granular level, such as a close-up of what you can see for London postcodes. So, having just a quick background of Ipsos Iris, now let's go through a case study which will really bring to life how you can use the data at the most granular level. But before, for any case study, we obviously want to understand what the business objective is. So let's begin with that. We will examine the sports category and identify key audiences to sustain and identify opportunities to grow. And the key outcomes that the business is looking for is to identify and the ability to target audience in context, grow the audience, maximize revenue, and of course, deliver ROI. Great. Now, let's see how Ipsos Iris can support meeting these outcomes. But before we dive right into the data, because I'm a user and I know that there are over 200 categories reported in Ipsos Iris, I first want to understand, how does the taxonomy look like to ensure that I'm pulling the most complete data. All right, so let's have a look at the taxonomy. And because I'm focusing on sports, I can look that sports essentially is in three main buckets. There is sports betting, there is sports as a complete category, and also sports under news. Fantastic. So now that I have determined this, let's jump right in. All right. So we know that the online population for UK 15 plus is 47 million. Having looked into the data, I determined that sports category is reaching 26 million, which comprises, as we saw, for sports betting, sports, and news sports as well, which I can further segment to know that sports betting is the smallest, while sports news reaches the largest audience. But before I segment it further, let me understand how big my subcategories are and what I shall focus on. So, as expected, football is the largest category amongst all the sports. Great. And if further segmented, say by sports and news, as we saw in the taxonomy, football news reaches 30% of the online audience, which now I would like to focus more on. So, of course, I want to also understand who are the key players, and I determine that while I, in this instance, Publisher 3, reach roughly about 2 million audiences for football, the gap between myself and the largest publisher, which is Publisher 1 here, is about 2.6 times. So that's interesting. But let me also quickly understand if I have higher loyalty or not. And because I can through exclusive audiences, what I determine is that I actually have the strongest loyalty base, which is roughly about 57%. That's really interesting. So now let's dig deeper. Because I know it is important for my editorial team to know when content is being consumed and can we rival against competitors, I can segment the data by day parts in Ipsos Iris. So let's have a look at data by day parts. And I see content is most consumed during the day and picks up again after 8 p.m. So audience is pretty much in line with what we just saw. Now let's take this further and understand if engagement is similar or not. All right. So looking at this data, I do find this quite interesting. While Publisher 1 had larger audience, I have really high engagement, even during evening hours, when generally there is a dip across a competitive set. This is fantastic. So having determined high engagement with football content versus my competition, let me understand performance within my own sections to see if I can and if there's an opportunity to maximize reach. All right, so looking at the data, I notice that there are sections which have higher reach than sports, but although sports is, the reach is lower than those sections, engagement is higher. So that's really interesting. And so let's park this for now. And because I want to focus on football content, and that is of main focus, let me quickly just look into the sports data in detail as well just to see if our hypotheses are correct. And as expected, football also has the highest audience and engagement as well within sports, which is pretty much in line with what we saw for the industry, and that's fantastic. So the question is, how do I capitalize on this to ensure I can leverage cross-audience between my own sections, sustain and grow the audience within my own brand, and keep my audiences on my website for longer periods of time so that I can increase loyalty, engagement, and ultimately deliver higher ROI for my brand. So, and of course, not to forget serving relevant content. So let's dig even further and let's have a look. So what does the data tell me? Looking at audience duplication numbers, and just to remind you, because we have a single source panel, for the first time, the industry has a view of unduplicated audiences across devices. So looking at this robust data, what we basically determine is across few sections of the website and cross it with football, I find that news and football have actually the highest overlap, with 12% news visitors also going to the football section, while 65% of football visitors going to news section. So this is certainly going to be interesting for me to take back to the business to see how can we capitalize on this new information. But before I do that, I'm quite certain people will also be interested to know if the same profile of will visit both sections. So let's have a look. All right, so I know that you see quite a bit of data on this slide, but once I analyze the data, what I see is that football generally attracts just a little bit of older audience versus news, and we cater to men living in London and Northeast and having a stronger affinity with Asians and Blacks, which is also true for news. So if I take this niche audience and understand them better, it will help my strategy team to get a better understanding of them in terms of who are they, what content do they consume, where do they spend most of their time online, so I can start creating content that is relevant based on their interest, and I can actually start creating higher loyalty and engagement. So now let's bring them to life. All right, so focusing on my niche audience and bringing them to life, now I can actually start reporting relevant behavior by reach to understand them better. But while I can see, which are their top key sites per category, where do they most spend time, I want to take it one step further. And I also want to look at the affinity, because obviously that's key. We want to understand where do they resonate with content the most. And what we realize is that affinity can be rather different. Say, for example, even though a larger audience would visit, for example, ITV for online betting, the affinity gets stronger versus total population with Sky Bet. And therefore, any strategies should be developed keeping this in mind. So having done a detailed analysis of the sports and the football category, what have we learned that now I can feed back to the business to answer some key business questions? So let's recap. What have we learned over here? We determined how big the category is, what makes up the category, who are the key players, how big is my audience vis-a-vis the competition, who is my audience? So we really, niched on that. And then how can I maximize my reach? So, right now in this particular case study, we just examined an internal strategy on how can I really, bank on my existing strong loyalty to my brand and maximize reach that way for football content. And how can I increase engagement? So what kind of relevant content that I can actually start creating based on their behavior on my brand, but externally as well. So this case study was just an example of one way of showcasing, of how you can utilize the data. It did focus on internal strategy, but you can do similar analysis for your key competition. You can do it for overall market. You can also compare, say, your specific section versus your competitor and see what kind of insights can you derive. So I hope this case study has just allowed you to see how Ipsos Iris can really meet your business objectives and support you in growing it further as well. So at this point, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our clients who are using Ipsos Iris in business decision making and invite everyone who may be interested to engage with us, because our continued commitment to Ipsos Iris and the industry is that with research rigor that Ipsos generally is known for, we will continue to deliver best-in-class solution with a collaborative UK-based team. But of course, the nature of the beast is we continue to develop and keep making Ipsos Iris current and up to date to meet the needs of the industry. And therefore, just to share what the upcoming developments are, we are working towards providing embedded audio and video measurement. You'll start seeing more server-to-server integration with distributed content. We will deliver enhanced audiences, starting to report on major UK cities, which I know some of you are waiting for, and also looking at inclusion of kids reporting. In addition to these, we are also going to provide report types in the next coming months, such as monthly dashboard, trend analysis report, device report, and day parts report, which will really allow you to just look at the data in a fashion where your business objective takes you. And also, just to iterate, there are ongoing improvements and enhancements of the solution based on what the industry needs. As we know, it's an ever-changing industry, and of course, valuable input that all our clients are giving us off the user interface. So now, before I go into Q&A and take questions, I quickly want to share some exciting data with you. So what you're looking at here is a snapshot of our daily data, which we released 36 hours after. So just for this purposes, filtering on men aged between age 15 plus, we are looking at two broadcasters' data, ITV Hub and BBC iPlayer, who have airing rights for Euro 2020. And what we see here basically is there's engagement in line with matches across the two players, and there's actually smooth switchover in content consumption between the two players as matches are played. Just to know that we have only shown scores of matches which are played by the nations, although there were other matches played during that time, which reflect basically the time spent on the slide. Another interesting note is that there's high engagement with England matches, which generally people expect, but there's also high engagement when Welsh and the Scots are playing too. So what does this mean? In real time, you have powerful data on your fingertips to make decisions on things like, what is the content consumption like, impact of major events, and can you make editorial and advertising decisions in a truly agile fashion? So I certainly hope that you enjoyed the case study and the overall update on Ipsos Iris. And with that, I will open it up for Q&A. All right, so just having a look at the questions. There's a question on where does UKOM and Iris fit with Project Origin? I would like to hand this over to Ian. Ian, if you don't mind answering that.
Thanks, Tasneem. That's a big high ball for me to deal with from the off. Can I just say, as a Scotland fan, I wish England all the very best for tomorrow, but I am interested in the fickle nature of the fans. The England-Scotland 0-0 draw relatively flat, and as every goal goes in, the higher interest. But good luck to my English friends tomorrow for the footy. So where does UKOM and Ipsos Iris fit with Project Origin? Blimey. So as you probably know, UKOM is co-owned by ISBA alongside the IAB and the AOP, with the IPA on the board as well. But through that relationship with ISBA co-owning us, we have a pretty clear and open dialogue Origin. Origin is fair to say is a complex beast with lots of moving parts and a very ambitious North Star. We're determined at UKOM that we won't be distracted by Origin, but at the same time, we don't really want to rule ourselves out of being part of any appropriate developments. I know that Ipsos have responded directly to an open Origin panel RFP, and part of the UKOM Ipsos Iris panel forms an element of that response. But UKOM's priority is to ensure that Iris, as it stands, delivers full value to the organisations, whether media owner, agency, trade body, or government that subscribe to it, and our priority is to encourage others to subscribe to it. So it's a simple answer to the question is we're running in parallel, and nothing's guaranteed and nothing's taken for granted, but neither is anything ruled out. But the main message is we're not getting distracted. We've got a pretty full plate on the day job.
All right, thank you, Ian. The next question is, can you confirm the level of geography that the panel is controlled at? And to add to that, the question also alludes to ethnicity as well. Mario, we have Mario Pick on the line as well with us. Mario, would you like to take that question, please?
Sure, thanks, Tasneem, and thanks for the question. So in terms of the control on the sampling side, and in terms of balancing the panel, we are controlling at the TV region level. However, there are additional variables being used on the weighting side, so including ethnicity and also I think additional geography as well. So apart from region, obviously on the balancing side and sampling side, there are other variables as well, but it's at the TV region level when it comes to geography. But as you can see from some of the charts that Tasneem showed, even if you go down below the region, even without additional weighting, there's a fairly good split and balance at the lower level. So we are looking to introduce another variable into the reporting, which will cover the major cities, and we will see if that needs to be additionally weighted.
Right, thank you, Mario. The next question is, you say that data are released monthly, but that there's flexibility to customize dates. Can you clarify? Ian, I believe you alluded to this earlier. Would you like to take this question?
Yeah, no problem. So in terms of customizing dates, as you showed with the football, there's some top line daily audience data available on a 36-hour overnight basis. And then on a monthly basis, there's a full set of rich, fully endorsed UKOM data available on a monthly basis. Now, the difference with the new data set is that monthly data is not a monolithic block of data, if you like. Currently, any date range could be selected within the month, and you could look at weekday or weekend or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 day long period. The future enhancement plan to that is to include any date range within the 3-month period. So you could look back at how the UK online audience behaved across the Wimbledon fortnight, or you could look at the build up to Christmas or school holidays or Euro Championships, etc. All of those could be selected as periods of data as required. In the first iteration, you can play around with dates within the single month and still get the full rich data set.
Right, thank you, Ian. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for answers. If there are any questions that come through, we will address it individually with one-on-one as a follow-up to the webinar. And with that, thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate your time, your attendance, and I would like to also thank Ian and Rishad for their valued time and input in making this webinar a special one. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Tasneem. Thank you, everybody.